Hello and welcome to the FPL Scope Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matthias, and with me today I have Kevin. And in podcast news for us, because last year we did it, me, Kevin, and Kimo mostly. But Kimo doesn't have the time to do the podcast every week this season, so it's mostly going to be me and Kevin. But obviously, Kimo, anytime he'd like, he is welcome to come back on for the podcast. But I know Kevin is ready to go for a new season, and I know you're excited to go. You have an Everton kid on currently, and I think you're pretty excited about Everton as well. Finally, it seems like you're usually pretty down on Everton, but it seems like you're kind of optimistic towards this season. So how do you feel about the season, FPL, Everton, everything?
I think raring to go is the best way to put it. I think going into the first game week on Friday, it's a perfect way because I head back to Sweden, my native Sweden, for 3 weeks. So it's just kind of a perfect way to start FPL and start the season, because on the Friday we got the Burnley City game, and then Saturday is when FPL really starts, I guess. But I'll be traveling to Sweden during that time as well. So I'm very much excited for that. I'm very much excited for a change of pace to with FPL back, but also leaving London for a bit to recharge the batteries and just go on.
Well, that's breaking news to me as well. I didn't know you were going to Sweden, so gotta try to hook something up and visit at some point. So that'd be cool. FPL, looking forward to it. West Ham, Everton, we'll see how our teams do in the league. We're actually going to do a table prediction, or Kevin is going to do his table prediction at the end of this video, so that's going to be something to look forward to. But before that, we're going to talk a little bit about FPL. But before we go into FPL, we're actually going to do the score predictions for this upcoming game week, for game week 1, because this is something we're going to try to do every single week now. Try to do the guess the score lines for every single game, and that's what we've done this week. I did mine, and then Kevin sent his afterwards, and we have some similar scores, but not exactly. So we'll start at the top and work our way down towards the bottom. So before you react to any of the other results, let's talk about Burnley against Man City, because I thought I was kind of making this game tighter than expected, but you have it even tighter with 2-1, while I've gone with 3-1 for City. We both think City will concede once again, because they always concede that one goal. So what made into your decision for 2-1 here?
I think just it's Burnley's first game back to the Premier League, company against his old club. Generally speaking, I've seen a lot of these sort of teams that have come up again, that they tend to have a decent game week 1, and first game of the season at home as well. Like, I think a lot of things can go unexpectedly, which is something we'll go into once you see my team for game week 1 as well, because I don't have a certain someone as captain for that for that match. So I also didn't. I mean, of course, the Community Shield is one thing, and I was there live and watched the game live and everything like that. I thought City looked a little bit emotionless. It sounds like a weird thing to say, even though they took the lead and should have probably won and conceded a very fluky goal. But there were a lot of alarm bells for me there. I know that they weren't playing their strongest 11 or whatever, because Kevin De Bruyne was not even starting and etc. But there was still just a lot of alarm bells there, and I think, judging by the fact that it's Burnley away rather than City at home, that's sort of what made me go with the KG affair. I still don't think that Burnley are going to win or get a draw or anything like that. I just think that City won't be running riot with this game.
Fair enough. I also thought that City will concede, because that always seems to happen. I don't know if he's going to be fit to play actually the first game week, but like my prediction is sort of Manuel Benson scoring one of his classic curlers top ins in the 89th minute or something when City are already up 3-0. But yeah, I can see it being sort of tight, but I still think City should pull it off, and we both have them as winners. So yeah, we can move on to their title challengers in most people's eyes, Arsenal. We both have pretty significant wins for Arsenal, so we don't really have to talk much about it. But what are you saying from Arsenal and Nottingham Forest to predict 4-0 for Arsenal in this game?
I just don't think Nottingham Forest are very good, to be completely honest. I also just think that Arsenal will want to get hit this game running, especially after winning the Community Shield as well. They want to
Yeah.
prove that just wasn't a fluke, and they want to hit the season and ground running. So I think personally, it seems like they have the right ideas, especially with what I got to see and just with preseason and all this type of stuff. I just think there's something in there that just screams that they're just gonna run riot. I mean, I think I was being a little bit brave by saying 4. I originally wanted to write 3-0, but I was just like, you know what? When Bukayo Saka gets a hat trick, that would be very sweet, and we'll go into why I said specifically that in a sec.
Yeah, I think I got an inkling who your captain is going to be, or potentially. I still don't believe you, but still. But yeah, Arsenal are probably going to win that easily. So whether it's 3-0, 4-0, 3-1, whatever, it's going to be a big win for Arsenal most likely. Like, I'd be really surprised if it's anything other than Arsenal win. They sort of have to win that match to be any sort of title contenders. So yeah. Let's move on to Bournemouth against West Ham, and we both have West Ham losing points. I have them losing outright 2-0 against Bournemouth. I think Andone Iraola is going to have a pretty good season for Bournemouth. I think they have a pretty underrated team, and especially with a new manager, I think they're going to be pretty good, especially against someone like West Ham, who are struggling, haven't really had any signings come in yet, because we know Edson Alvarez is about to be signed. James Ward-Prowse and Maguire seems to be going over the line as well, but I don't think they might potentially be ready for Sunday, but it's only a matter of like a couple days now until the game starts. So yeah, I think West Ham are less prepared than Bournemouth, and I think Bournemouth will pull out the win. But you think 1-1, so what went into your result thinking here?
I think in case one of the 3 plays, I think you guys could easily get a draw. If all 3 play, I think you guys can even try and edge for a win. But obviously, there's too little time to integrate all those players into the match day and all this type of stuff. So of course they'll very likely not play, or play very little if they do. But nevertheless, I mean, I've liked what I've seen of West Ham. The way they ended the season obviously was perfect for you guys. What's to say that won't continue? Bowen's been really good in preseason as well. Bournemouth, on the other hand, have been terrible in preseason. So, I think that going into that, yeah. Do I think that Iraola is more of a fascinating coach than David Moyes is currently? Yes, because I think David Moyes is very stuck in his ways, sadly, which is why a lot of these players that are of similar prices or even cheaper are being ignored, because he just wants downright Englishmen or established players, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that's mainly the reasoning why I think that it will still end a draw, because I still think that West Ham and Jared Bowen especially has looked pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, West Ham, they have such difficult fixtures to start the season, so they really should get a result from this. So it could happen, though. I think it's just me being pessimistic for the season. Declan Rice has left already. Paqueta is potentially going to Man City. So yeah, it's a bit of a turbulent time for most West Ham fans, even though we just won a trophy. We're champions of Europe. So yeah, we're happy, but we're sort of unhappy with the coming season. But let's move on to Brighton-Luton, because I actually have that as a 2-2 draw, which kind of surprised me as well that I went for that. But I sort of have more faith in Luton than most people next season, because I think they're going to be like sort of like Blackpool, if you remember, like 10, 12 years ago or something. They came up and had like no fear. They had nothing to lose, really, because this is a bonus season for them. They don't really have anything to lose. Everyone expects them to go down straight away. They've never been in the Premier League before, or at least since its inception when they went down. So I think it's going to be 2-2. I think Brighton are going to struggle a bit. Caicedo situation also, I don't think he's going to play. So they're going to need some time to settle in. But I still think they can score a lot of goals, because De Zerbi is going to provide some goals for sure for Brighton. He's such an attacking manager. But yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say 2-2 there. But you think it's going to be a comfortable Brighton win, 3-0. So yeah, I expect you to say that Luton are going to be struggling this season.
Yeah,
I think Brighton just that good. Is it Brighton are too good, or Luton are too bad, or is it a mixture of both?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think Brighton will want to start the season really well. They've looked good in preseason as well, and I have a bunch of Brighton players, so I need them to play well. But that being said, I just generally speaking think that if Brighton want to be in the position where they keep things consistent and try and get top 6, top 7, top 8, be in the upper half of the table, they're gonna have to win these sort of games. This is an opening game for them. It's the first home game at the Amex. So yeah, I definitely have strong belief in them that they'll hit the ground running. Juan Pedro's looked great. Matoma's Matoma. They still have Sully March, Estupinian, which everyone seems to have. And yeah, I think, with a lot of if they even get Kudos, I mean, that would be insane. But apparently now there's talks that Kudos wants a release clause and Brighton don't want to include one. So that's why it's causing a lot of delays with the transfer. But if they add him as well, Brighton are going to look sick, and they have these Europe aspirations and all this type of things, then they're going to have to hit the ground running. That's sort of how I envisioned this. And considering this fact that last time out they spanked Man United and all this type of things and etc., they've had really strong season starts in the past, and also it's Luton. I don't want to be like that, but it is Luton Town. They Luton have, like you said, have nothing to lose. They have everything to gain from a famous 2-2 draw. Would be really good for them. But I just think Brighton are gonna hit the ground running.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Like that's the thing with me. Like if I had more faith in Brighton, I do have faith in Brighton, but I don't know. They're in a difficult spot with all the players leaving, and we've seen them tackle that in the past, but you can only do that so much. We saw that with Southampton. They kept losing their best players and they kept performing, but then all of a sudden, after 3 or 4 years of losing their best players every single season, they started to struggle a bit. So yeah, I think Brighton at the start of the season will be a bit more shaky, but yeah, it could easily be 3-0 as well. I think the odds are in your favor there. But yeah, we're moving on to Everton. I have a 0-0 draw. I figured I should have one goalless game in this round, and this seemed like the prime candidate for that, because I don't really see who's going to score for Everton. I don't really see who's going to score for Fulham with Mitrovic there, so that's why I gone with 0-0. But you have a 2-1 win for Everton. So how are you feeling about this game? Are you confident in a win, or is it something that you're kind of 50-50 on?
I am confident. Everton went the preseason undefeated. We didn't lose a single game. We're signing a bunch of important players. Tarkowski seems to be ready for the weekend. DCL is ready for the weekend. Then Juma is the one who's a bit of a maybe he'll start, maybe he doesn't. It seems like Yusuf Chimitri is going to be official any minute now. We're looking at Wilfried Gnonto. We're looking at a lot of things. I'm cautiously optimistic. Everton Fulham usually is a game where both teams score, and that's why I kept Fulham 1 there. However, I still think that it could be either or. It's either Everton win or Fulham win. I don't see a draw happening, to be completely honest.
Fair enough. So we disagree there as well, but we do agree wholeheartedly about Sheffield United against Palace, 2-0 to Palace. We don't really have to talk about that much, really. We shouldn't spend too much time on these results. But yeah, 2-0 for Palace. I think it just makes sense. Sheffield United are, for me, the worst team in the league. They've just sold Sandeberge, their second best player last season, behind Iliman Ndiaye, who they've also sold. So yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for Palace, even though I don't think Palace are that good at the start of the season without Olise and Zaha has gone and stuff as well. But yeah, easy 2-0 win there. I don't think you have that much to add. I don't know. Anything?
No.
Nah, 2-0 seems like a regular result for Palace there. Aston Villa against Newcastle. We both think it's going to be a tight game. These are like teams that are fighting for the same spots, right behind like the big six, or in between some of the big six teams as well. Maybe not in the big four, I guess. I think it's sort of like big four now with Manchester teams, Arsenal and Liverpool. But yeah, Newcastle and Aston Villa will be right amongst the teams right behind them, I think. So I have 1-1 here because I think it's going to be a really tight game, and I can really choose who I think will win because I think these teams are pretty even. But you have the edge for Newcastle. Is that simply home back, or simply down to the fact that they are playing at home, or is it just you think they're a better team? Yeah, so that's
I think it's just the St. James Park advantage. I think these two teams will be placed very similarly. I think they're very interchangeable at who will be better, especially because Newcastle have the Champions League to worry about, whilst Aston Villa have the Conference League, and one one tournament's obviously more important than the other in terms of like who they'll actually face and etc. as well. So yeah, I think Newcastle will just edge it, and hopefully my boy Isak gets to get in on the fun.
Yeah. Then we have Brentford Spurs. Again, we have different results. I have a 3-1 Brentford win because I feel like they always win against like those big six teams when they catch them off guard. And I think Postecoglou is going to need some weeks to get settled and stuff with that squad. You have it 1-1. What do you I think that's pretty low scoring. Like I expect both these teams to be better offensively than defensively. So what makes you go 1-1 in this game?
I have no idea. I think I just put down a result, but I think it's also. I think partly what I was thinking was if Harry Kane suits up, then I definitely think there could be some fight in them.
Yeah.
If Harry Kane doesn't, then 3-1 seems a lot more likely. I mean, 3-1 happened whilst Harry Kane was playing, but
last season.
in the sense that for me, the fact that Mbeumo might play, I'm still not 100% sure whether it's just a knock or if he's actually going to play. Obviously, Tony's not there and all this type of stuff. Brentford have looked really weird in preseason. Some games they win, some games they just concede for fun and all this type of stuff. So part of me thinks that they're good enough to not lose, but I'm still a bit worried if they're good enough to win a game like that, if that makes any sense, because this sort of screams like this one game that Brentford played against Chelsea last season, where it was just a cagey affair the entire time. Both teams looked like they could score, but none of them were able to get past the line. And I think, like you said, Postecoglou will need some time to get things working, but I don't think he'll go away thinking that a draw is the worst result.
Yeah, I think they'd be happy with a draw away to Brentford. Right. Brentford were really good at home last season as well. That's sort of why I went with 3-1 for Brentford. I feel like they are a pretty good match for Spurs, as they showed like just a couple months ago when they beat them 3-1 without Tony. That was without Tony as well. I think the 3-1 win over Spurs. So I think that will happen again. But I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs score like 3 or 4 goals as well, because Brentford could also concede quite a lot of goals. So, but speaking of high-scoring games, I think we both agree that it's going to be high-scoring between Chelsea and Liverpool. But the thing is, this game has ended 0-0 the last 4 times they played each other. So what do you like? Do you buy into that at all, the former results, or do you look at like the underlying numbers? And if you remember those matches, how many chances there were, especially in the finals that they played, where they played 120 minutes. It's crazy that there weren't more goals in those games. So you both think it's high scoring. Is that like a given, or could this be 0-0 again?
I mean, I think it could be a draw, and that's why I kept a 2-2 draw.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just something that just yelled at me draw in this game, and I think with Nkunku playing, it could have easily have been a win for Chelsea. But that being said, I could also see 4-2 happening because I originally wanted to keep Liverpool winning, but I just went, you know what? I think Chelsea they've been really good in preseason and they've looked really good under Poch, just generally speaking. Sure, it's preseason, but again, a lot of the teams they faced were other Premier League teams, and there was a clear style of play developed there. And Nicholas Jackson looked really good. And now, if anything, Nicholas Jackson is even more nailed on to play at striker because Nkunku's injured, and of course, Lukaku's still a huge question mark because it seems like he's not going to be going to Juventus.
Yeah,
he's obviously not going back to Inter. Was pictured at Cobham, so yeah, he might get to play. I'm not saying he's going to play this game, but he might be in the fold. But regardless, Nicholas Jackson is 100% going to play. He's super in form.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think Chelsea have a bit of a fighting chance. Whilst Liverpool, they've been kind of uneven when it comes to conceding goals to like random ass teams and all this type of stuff. So for me, I sort of understand why some people don't think they're going to be in the Champions League this year and all that, they won't get a Champions League spot by the end of the year. But for me, still, obviously, anything can happen in that game. But I still think it's going to end up a draw. Liverpool could easily win it. I don't see Chelsea winning it without Nkunku. sadly. But I think a 2-2 draw will be a good statement of intent from Poch and Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Pochettino, but I just think that Chelsea's squad isn't that good, especially with Nkunku injured. Like, there's so many like glaring omissions in that team, especially in centre midfield. They have Enzo Fernandes, who's fantastic, but other than that, it's really bare bones with Gallagher and Chukwuemeka. But yeah, so I think Liverpool will win this one, and they have so much attacking firepower, and yeah. I don't have that much faith in Chelsea, especially now that Nkunku's injured. We both are huge fans of Nkunku. We're both huge fans of Nicholas Jackson as well. But yeah, to the point of Lukaku, he didn't even get a squad number, so I think he's going to leave Chelsea. But it seems like there are no suitors left. But hey, maybe Everton comes along and tries to get him back. That's the only team that it's.
I would 100% take him back. I'd give them everyone. I'd even give up Onana for Lukaku just because.
Would you do that straight up?
Yeah, Chelsea definitely, because Chelsea would take that in a heartbeat. So yeah,
I would never do that if I was Everton, but yeah, I get it.
Onana
for the sentimental value, but Onana is more valuable than Lukaku, though.
Of course, but I also think Onana's at the point where he knows he's better than the club. So
yeah, he's probably going to leave at some point anyway. But yeah, I'd love to see that personally, because it seems like Inter fans are not happy with Lukaku anymore because he's been flirting with Juventus. Juventus fans had like a big demonstration today, I think, against signing Lukaku. Chelsea obviously don't like him, so I think Everton is his only like proper home. So it would be cool to see him back at Everton, but I don't know. I haven't seen any rumors about that, but we'll see. Stranger things have happened in the Premier League. So finally, we have one game left, and we both agree it's going to be 3-0 to Man United. I think it's pretty easy. Man United are potentially going to push for at least number 2. Potentially, it's probably too early for title contention, but they're going to be amongst the top 4 most likely, and they play a Wolverhampton team that just changed managers to have Gary O'Neill coming in, but I don't think he's going to get a result in this game. So 3-0 is pretty much a given, right?
Sorry, I just saw some breaking news from Fabrizio Romano over Hugo
Ekitike to Everton?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh.
Is it here we go, or is it?
No, it's a loan deal with buy option to become mandatory, but PSG won 35 total package. Gave it the 35 mil. Evan Dimitri will be sick. Okay, anyways. Fair enough. Manchester United... Yeah, there's not much to say really. Yeah, they're Champions League Champions League spot guaranteed, I think, maybe. And Wolves suck and just got rid of Julian Lopetegui. So yeah,
easy win for Man United.
Yeah, definitely. But anyways, if Wolves win that, holy crap.
Let's move on from the Premier League results and get into what we're actually going to talk about. That is of most interest for most of our viewers, and that is Fantasy Premier League and your current squad. And I have it loaded up in my team, actually. So currently I have your squad, but this is your squad, and you alluded to the captaincy thing already with no Haaland captain, Saka captain, and I still don't believe you. Even after listen to you with the scores, Arsenal are going to win 4-0, Man City are going to win 2-1. I don't trust you.
Why is that?
I can't see it.
Okay.
Everyone has Haaland captain. You could be so far behind. You could be so far ahead as well, to be fair. But I like it. Don't get me wrong. I really like it because I if you know me from FPL, I don't really like the template sort of picks, but I feel like Haaland can score 2 or 3
I remember when a certain Haaland played West Ham and you refused to captain him.
Yeah, that was the first game of the season last season. Salah got 20 points. I don't mind. But yeah, to be fair though, I remember one game like last season when it was between Saka or Kane. Everyone chose between Saka or Kane as captain, and I was certain you had picked Saka, and then all of a sudden you celebrated when Kane scored, and I was just like, "What? You captained Saka, but no, you captained Kane." And Saka ended up getting that 18-pointer, I think, against Palace or something. So yeah, maybe that's on your mind. Did that play any part of this at all, or is it just simply you think Arsenal's fixture is much better?
I just think Arsenal's fixture is much better.
Yeah.
Arsenal playing at home to Nottingham Forest. Arsenal have just beaten City. I've had Saka as my captain since the game launched, pretty much. Because I was that sure. The only reason I am even... Because it says everything that Rashford's my vice. I have not been thinking about Haaland as my captain at all because I don't know. On top of my head, I'd say the Burnley of old would 100% lose to City. This Burnley, company Burnley, new bounce Burnley, I think they're going to show a little bit more fight. I also thought Holland was terrible against Arsenal, but I've also already had Saka as captain since forever. So part of me is the only reason you'll see me having Holland as captain is because I'm afraid of the fact that everyone
Everyone
else
else
will
has
have
it.
him as
Yeah.
captain. That's the only thing that is stopping me. But I don't think so. I think I'm going to go in with Saka as. I still think I'm going to go with Saka by the end of Friday. So yeah,
I know at least from my thinking, it's like Arsenal. Even if they win 4-0 and City only win 2-1, Martinelli could score, Ødegaard could score, the striker Havertz or whoever could score, Trossard could score. So many players that could score, but with City, it's most likely going to be Haaland. So I think even if you give him the results, 4-0 to Arsenal, 2-1 to City, I'm still going to captain Haaland probably because I think he's more likely to score more of the goals for City than Saka is for Arsenal. But I do like it because Saka, I obviously have had Saka since day one as well. I think he's a fantastic pick, but I don't know, betting against Haaland seems like a risk for me, but I do like it. I like it whenever anyone tries to go outside of the template. So yeah, I do rate the move though. But you mentioned the Community Shield, and Haaland didn't look good in the Community Shield. But you also mentioned the West Ham result from last season, the opening day of the season when Haaland scored twice. It was the same story last year. City lost the Community Shield, didn't look that good. Haaland looked terrible. He missed a couple huge chances. I remember you said that as well. He looked terrible, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
And then when it comes down to it, when it's the league, he scored twice against West Ham and got 13 points, I think. Not as much as Salah, who I captained that game week, but still, I think that could happen again. He could finally get back to scoring because we know he has it in him, of course. So yeah, you're completely sure, Saka, when we come back a week from now, you're going to sit there with Saka as captain, you think?
I think it's very, very, very likely, yes.
Okay, fair enough.
And I don't, and I'm not doing this to purposely be a differential or anything like that. I just think Saka's chances of scoring is very high in that game.
Yeah.
Also being the pen taker and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Though he did miss a penalty recently, but yeah.
Yeah.
Still took it in the Community Shield and scored. So
yeah, we assume it's the penalty taker. I thought it was interesting that Ødegaard took the first pen and Saka took the second one in the Community Shield, but I think it doesn't really mean that much.
I think that's just more to throw them off a little bit.
Yeah, probably. But usually the best taker takes it, or best penalty taker takes the first penalty or the last one if you're Cristiano Ronaldo wants to be the hero and you're stupid. But yeah.
I don't know.
But anyways, it seems like you are pretty set on Saka as captain. I'm excited to see it if you actually go through with it. But yeah, let's talk about the rest of your team as well. We have another huge player, Salah. I'm going to mention him towards the end because we're going to touch on Liverpool in the next segment. So obviously Salah in Game Week 2, it's another good captaincy shot, but we're going to discuss that towards the end. But yeah, I noticed also you're obviously an Everton fan and you have triple Everton. I think that's is that the only team you have tripled up on? Yeah, you've only tripled up on one team. Yeah. It is your own team, Everton. So what do you have to say for yourself? How do you have 3 Everton players?
I think Everton have really good matches, just generally speaking. Calvert-Lewin's looked good in preseason. Pickford's obviously looked good because he's played every game except for like one. Branthwaite could be a Manchester United player by the end of the transfer window. So, yeah, I think it's the lack of not having another 4.0 or 0.5 to mess around with because Branthwaite could easily become someone else. But yeah, to be completely honest, I think it's just because I know Branthwaite will play. Pickford's a easy goalkeeper choice at his price point. Calvert-Lewin's just a outside pick, but Calvert-Lewin might change to someone a little bit more dependable if I keep hearing stuff like he's injured and he's not ready to start the game and all this type of stuff. Then yeah, no. But Calvert-Lewin is like, besides Danjuma, our only offensive threat. McNeil's injured. Iwobi is good for an assist here and there, but he barely scores. Demarai Gray is being sold, but we have Yusuf Dimitri, we have potentially other strikers who will get involved and whatever, but Fulham at home isn't the worst game. And again, our next 5 after that game look really good too.
Yeah. And it's not like you have super expensive players either. You have the 4.5 goalkeeper, which is the cheapest starting goalkeeper you can get, apart from Turner, who might be your backup eventually. I don't know. It seems like Areola is sort of... I'm not sure about that yet because we haven't heard any news. So it seems like most people are thinking it's going to be Fabianski again this season. But I know you're a bigger fan of Areola than Fabianski. But yeah, I noticed you have Calvert-Lewin starting against Fulham. And as you said, he has struggled a bit with injuries and stuff. Sean Dyche was kind of like wishy-washy on him. Said like he might not be ready and stuff. But you have Eze on the bench. So wouldn't it make more sense to have Eze from start rather than Calvert-Lewin?
Yes, but at the same time, I think it's my issue here is not knowing whether Embuemo is fully fit or not. For me, I feel like I have to play Calvert-Lewin at home against Fulham. I have to play Juan Pedro. I have to play all these other boys. So it's just the question of that. So I think...
But don't you have to play Eze when he plays the worst team in the league?
Exactly. So if Embuemo doesn't play, then obviously it makes my decision a lot easier. I think it's just a question of what I end up doing. I don't think Eze is going to end up on the bench. I think, yes, it could be potentially Calvert-Lewin who gets benched, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking, because Calvert-Lewin is 6.0, right? And I know you like Nicholas Jackson. He's 7.0. Can you find that million to get Jackson for Calvert-Lewin and then bench Jackson against Liverpool potentially? I mean, we both have Chelsea scoring twice against Liverpool, so maybe Nick Jackson is a starter as well. But that seems like a interesting approach to me. But I don't know.
Probably will find it, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah. And then you go on with, I know there's a lot of discussion about the 6.5 midfielders. You have Embuemo and Eze rather than Mitoma and someone like Diaby, for example. You also, with 4.0 defenders, there's a lot of discussion as well. I see a lot of people with Baldock and Kabore, but you have Branthwaite and Bayer. So what went into those decisions for you in terms of the 6.5 midfielders and the 4.0 defenders?
They're better players.
So you think Branthwaite is going to start from game week 1, or do you think he's going to be eventually put into the squad? Or
he'll eventually get into it, but like I still think that having an Everton defender over having a Sheffield United defender will long term be the better thing. So that's why I have Branthwaite over Baldock. And what was the other player you mentioned?
Issa Kabore. That's
I like Issa Kabore, to be fair. So I could consider bringing him in instead of Bayer if they're the same price, but I think Burnley are going to be better than Luton, so sorry.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I mean, Bayer has City in the first game and Denny has a blank, but after that, you're not going to play these guys anyway. Like they're just going to be on your bench. So
yeah,
if they come good in like game 4, 5, 6, then that's good enough for you. So yeah, I get it. But yeah, when it comes to 6.5 midfielders, have you thought about Mitoma or Diaby at all, or are Embuemo and Eze further up because they're penalty takers and stuff?
Yes, they have been in consideration and stuff like that, but again, like you said, those two are penalty takers. Also, that Embuemo could play at striker. Eze just will be involved in everything, especially if Elise gets sold to either as Chelsea or City, who both are looking at activating his release clause. So for me, yeah, I think both are good options. I think Mitoma is also a good option because if I do have Mitoma, then I tripled up on Brighton. But it's just because Brighton have such a random fixtures in not so long from now. Yeah, I figured I'd, make sure to hedge my bets a little bit and yeah, pretty much just go with a little bit more different. Yeah. Thinking about the fact that I have 3 Everton players makes me nervous, but it's a very varied team. It'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. It's different from what we see usually, and that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about now. Let's talk about a couple of the template picks that you don't have. And you spoke about having 3 Everton players, and in goal you have Pickford, but the template goalkeeper right now is Andre Onana, who I know you're a pretty big fan of. So what is your thinking when it comes to Pickford versus Onana or other 4.5 or even 5.0 goalkeepers? Do you like Onana's chances?
I mean, I do, and that might be a player that I might try and get involved into the team somehow, because I originally had Luke Shaw as well, but then I made Luke Shaw into Guardiola and made Guardiola into this player and that player, so it opened up some cap space for me. But it's just a question of then what and who do I end up picking.
Wait, Kevin dropped out, so you gotta continue soon. Technical difficulties. Okay, so Kevin's laptop just crashed. So I was just about to ask you about the Pickford versus Onana in goal. So what's your thinking? Are you considering Onana at all, or is it only Pickford for you?
I think this sounds really stupid considering the fact that De Gea just won the Golden Glove, but for me, I think the appeal of Manchester United's defense is always just going to be their fullbacks like Luke Shaw or Wan-Bissaka. I think Onana's going to do a great job. Don't get me wrong. It's just that I can use that 0.5 somewhere else, and in this case, as you can see with my team, I have. So yeah, I think that's the only reason. But if given the choice of Onana or Pickford, I guess I would say Onana. I'd realistically say always pick Onana over Pickford, but for me, it's just so I can sort of, because Guardiola, for example, would most likely be the difference between me having Onana and not. If I didn't have Guardiola, I probably would have changed Guardiola into a 4.5 and then had, I mean, that's actually something I could do. I could potentially switch him to another fullback for 4.5 and then get Onana. But yeah, I think for now Pickford wins just for the time being. Luke Shaw could still somehow swing back into my team depending on if there's any last minute news or injuries or anything like that, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know yet if Guardiola is going to start the first game because obviously he just joined City, but I've looked back at the previous centre backs, and Ruben Diaz joined like 3 days before a Game Week 4 fixture, and he started straight away for Pep. So I don't think it's that big of an outside shot for Guardiola to start, especially with Nathan Ake being injured as well. But yeah, you mentioned Luke Shaw as a 5.5 defender, but the most popular 5.5 defender currently, it seems like, is either Stones, because people seem to pick him, but you've gone with Guardiola instead, which is understandable, especially if he plays. But the other 5.5 pick is Ben Chilwell. Have you considered him at all, or is it Shaw mostly if you're going to go with the 5.5?
It's Shaw mostly just because I'd like to see a little bit more of Chelsea, especially after the Nkunku news. Had Nkunku been fit, maybe I would have had Reece James or Chilwell for sure. Yeah. But for time being, no.
Yeah, I mean, Reece James is also an option. He's probably the penalty taker. I mean, he was supposedly the penalty taker when Havertz and him were back when Potter was manager. At least those were the ones available to take penalties, apparently. So yeah, how would you measure James versus Chilwell as well?
Both are injury prone as all hell. So yeah, but I think, I mean, as of right now, you'd obviously say Chilwell just because he's shown to have a little bit more, I don't know, just doesn't get as injured. So it's really hard to pick one or the other out of those two, because I think if both are fit, those are two of the best fullbacks in the Premier League, you know, Robertson, TAA levels. So for sure. But I think lately I've seen Chilwell do a lot of more crazier runs than I have seen of Reece James, but I don't think that's due to the lack of Reece James not wanting to do that or him playing right center back, as we saw under Potter and some random crap that we just got to see him through. But I think out of the two, I'd say Reece James has the higher potential, but I think that Chilwell currently is the better pick.
Yeah.
Or stable pick, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, offensively, you have sort of most bases covered. You don't have Bruno Fernandes because you have Salah instead. So are you scared of going without Bruno Fernandes when he's such a highly owned pick, or what do you think about that? Or is it just down to Salah just being a better option, and that's why? Would you have, if you couldn't have Salah, would Bruno Fernandes be your midfielder pick, or would it be someone else?
It'd probably be someone else.
Like who?
Why are you asking me that? No, I was kidding. Son, probably. I really like Heung-min Son. Obviously, if Kane leaves, Son is going to be Mr. Everything. So, yeah, I think I also don't like doubling up on midfielders. I think that seems like crazy business. And the only reason we did it with Brighton last year is because they had like 5,000 double game weeks. So, yeah, I think that's the only thing. If Rashford shows any signs of decline, then 100%. It's such an easy swap, and I save 0.5. Yes, Bruno's on pens or whatever, but Rashford's still going to be the focal point of attack. There's no way Ten Hag is going to go like, you know what? You had such a great season last year. Let's make you into a defensive left winger sort of thing. Nah, man, he's going to play striker, especially now with Højlund potentially missing a week or two as well. Yeah, I think that 0.5 extra is fine for Rashford, and I think I can live without Bruno. Because that's the thing about Bruno. Bruno's one of those type of guys that will either get you like 3 points one game week or 26 the next. I think Rashford's shown some consistency of scoring the odd goal every other game, which if you end up doing the maths, is still like 20 goals. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you as well. I think like penalties, a lot of people have like good memories of Bruno Fernandes scoring like 10 penalties per season, but that's not the norm. Like usually Premier League teams get about 4 or 5 penalties on average. If you look through the past few seasons and you look like the median sort of penalties, like the teams that are in the middle when it comes to penalties, it's usually around 4 or 5, and that's where Man United have been the last few seasons as well. So I don't think penalties are that big of a deal, but obviously it's an advantage for Bruno Fernandes. But I think Rashford is more the focal point. So I kind of prefer Rashford as well. And you always have him as vice captain as well over Haaland, so you have a lot of faith in him. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the midfielders. Apart from or like the template picks, I guess. I mean, Watkins, I guess, is sort of like a template pick now. All of a sudden, no one talked about Watkins at all, and then a couple injuries to Nkunku and Jesus, and all of a sudden he's like super template. But yeah, Watkins, I know he trolled both of us last season, so we're probably not touching him. But yeah, let's rather talk about the main man, Mohamed Salah, because obviously you've spent quite a lot of money on Salah when you already have Haaland. You're not going to captain Haaland though in Game Week 1, and I suspect you're not going to captain Haaland in Game Week 2 either because you have Salah. Is that right? Is that why you have Salah, or is Salah like a guy you're going to keep long term, or is it mostly for the Game Week 2 captaincy?
I think it's just a little bit of, this sounds really stupid to say, insurance. Do you get what I mean? Like, I think Salah can do crazy things, and that's why he's on the team. He faces his former team in Chelsea, who likes a goal against. Doesn't usually score at Stamford Bridge, though. But yes, it is that game week 2 fixture, which could end like a comfortable 4-1, 5-1. I mean, it was crazy last year, but I'm not expecting that under Iraola. But I think it's just, I know how good Salah is. I mean, I've had Salah longer than some people did last season as well. So, and brought him back quicker than some people did as well. So, yeah, I think it's just that. I think he's proven time and time again that he is the ultimate FPL player in many regards. So, yeah, I think it's mainly that. I think it's also the lack of. It sounds really stupid because they haven't had Sadio Mane for a year. They don't have Firmino anymore. Yes, they have really good attacking players and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, the focal point is always going to be Mo Salah, so that's why I'm always going to back him.
Yeah, you mentioned it. It's safety with Salah. You know he's going to be the Liverpool player who's going to play every game, and he is also the one that's most likely to score, even if everyone else is playing as well. He's on penalties, like we just mentioned. They could get penalties as well. So yeah, he's just a safe pick from Liverpool, and Liverpool are a really good offensive team and play against Chelsea, who weren't the best defensively last season, and then against Bournemouth, who were definitely not the best defensively last season. So yeah. But speaking of those Liverpool players, that's actually the next segment we're gonna talk about, and that is the Fab Four, I guess. Back in the day, it used to be Coutinho, Firmino, Mane, and Salah. And I guess, I mean, they're not the actual Fab Four because obviously Salah is the most important player. But out of the four, like midfielders / forwards type of fantasy options that you see before your hair, Luis Diaz, Darwin Nunez, Diogo Jota, and Cody Gakpo, which are any of these teams or any of these players in consideration for your Game Week 1 team at all? Have you considered any of these guys at any point? You obviously have Salah, so you have Liverpool covered already.
I mean, if I were to get anyone, it is a mixture of the final two, because they've looked really good in preseason. That's being Diogo Jota and Cody Gakpo. I think both have looked really good in preseason, and those are the two that I'd consider. I still think Darwin can have a huge season. A lot of people forget that even when he was at Benfica, it was his second season where he exploded onto the scene. His first season was kind of one to forget, and it's kind of the same this time around. I think he's going to have a huge year. And again, Luis Diaz was just super unlucky to get injured. However, the issue is, I don't know which one of these four are 100% going to start. I definitely think Salah will start. I definitely think, just judging it based on preseason minutes, just generally speaking, I think Cody Gakpo has a good chance of starting as well.
Yeah.
I think he'll play striker, and it'll be Salah on the right. Now, it was just a question of who will get to play at left wing. We know Jota can play left wing, but he seems to be preferring the sort of center forward position a little bit more. Darwin can, I don't know. Like it's Darwin's the biggest question mark for me, because I'd say, regularly speaking, Luis Diaz can virtually only play at left wing because they have Szoboszlai, they have McAllister, who can play up to 10. Like, he will mainly be deployed on the left wing, and if they're going to play with the left wing and right winger, then it should be Luis Diaz and Salah and Gakpo down the middle. But I can't say for certain, because Jota's looked so good in preseason. Maybe he'll get the nod. It'd be really cool to see if Jota, Gakpo, and Salah play together, because that, I'd say, would be incredibly tasty. But we all know that Luis Diaz is perfect as a left winger too. So that's a massive headache. I don't understand why they bought. Like, we said this for over a year in podcasts. We don't understand Liverpool's recruitment in terms of attack. Like, yes, you have the squad to win everything, but you do not know how to deploy them.
Yeah, and they still don't have a proper CDM. They sold Fabinho Henderson now for huge profit. Like, they should be consider themselves so lucky selling them. I know people are saying, like, oh, they shouldn't have sold them because of the experience they have and stuff, but the money they got for them is crazy, considering how bad they were last season. But they still don't have a proper DM. They bought Cody Gakpo when they already have so many good options offensively. They even had Carvalho and Elliott and stuff who could play on the wing as well before then. So I never really understood the Gakpo signing. I guess he's more like a striker option compared to Darwin Nunez, but yeah. I'm going to ask you to rank these guys now in a couple different categories. So the first one is, if you would say who gets the most starts for the first 5 game weeks, how would you rank them in terms of who do you think is the most likely to play the first few game weeks of the season?
I think it will be number 1, or do you want to do it from reverse order?
Just go number 1, that guy number 2, that guy number 3, that guy number 4, that guy.
So I might be wrong.
Yeah, of course. It's just guesswork, and it's difficult for anyone to know, but yeah.
I just judging based on stuff, it'll be Gakpo number 1, Jota number 2, Luis Diaz number 3, Darwin number 4. And I don't think there's anything to say against Luis Diaz not starting. It's just basing it on preseason. Jota and Gakpo have looked really good in preseason. I can't remember seeing or hearing much of Luis Diaz. I know Darwin's scored a lot of goals, but if you see the minutes, it's like he's gone like really garbage, like 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, whilst these other guys have been getting more substantial play. So I think that's the order it will be in.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with your order. So yeah, I agree with that. If you knew they were all playing, or if you knew the player in choosing either of these players would play 90 minutes every single week, how would you rank them then? If everyone were guaranteed to play, how would you rank them?
If everyone is guaranteed to play, I would maybe say similar order, but Jota number one then.
So Jota number one,
Gakpo number two? If I knew all four were playing?
Not at the same time, but like if you pick Diaz, he's going to play 90 minutes every week. If you pick Nunez, he's going to play 90 minutes every week. Like, minutes is not an issue, just completely based on how good they are as FPL options. If they play every single game, how would you rank them? That's sort of my question.
I still think I'd rank it the way I just said, yeah.
Gakpo number one.
No, sorry. Then
or Jota number one, and then
Jota number one, and Gakpo number two, and then Diaz 3, Darwin 4. Diaz again with 90 minutes could easily outplay Gakpo, but I just think Gakpo's now sort of come into his own in what Klopp wants out of him and all this type of stuff. And again, he's looked really good in preseason, but again, preseason doesn't matter because we had Bojan Kirkic who looked really good for Stoke, and everyone had him, and that was a shit show. So. So preseason could mean nothing, but I know how these players play and all this type of stuff, and I do think we get to see the best out of Gakpo, which is for Liverpool fans must be really exciting because of the fact that they have such good offensive quality. It's ridiculous. But Jota is, we know, clinical, proven, saved a lot of people's season last year. Like, I think the reason why I got beaten by some people is because they put the belief on Jota at the right time, and etc. Yeah. So yeah, I think it'll be that. I mean, obviously Luis Diaz is amazing. I think it's a shame that I'm putting him third place in like everything that I've said, but I think Luis Diaz is phenomenal. I also think that Darwin could explode into the scene because he started the season last year really good and scored some technically difficult goals, like back heels, like the goal. Boom! I still think, like, how the hell do you do that? Like your debut Premier League game and all this type of stuff. So they're all super talented. Don't get me wrong, but I think just due to established sort of history with some of these players and stuff, we know that Diogo Jota was too good for Wolves, and that's why he's at Liverpool, and he shows every time that he's not just a guy who's injured time. He actually comes back and scores and goes crazy every single time. So yeah, I think the rankings is the way it is, but these all four can edge themselves, but that's why I spend 4 or 5 million more to make sure I have Mo Salah, who always plays and is always consistent, and then I don't have the headache of having to pick one of these guys.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with you on those rankings. I agree with your number one pick, though. I think if he plays 90 minutes every week, I think Jota is a fantastic pick. He's also the one who's actually proven in the Premier League that he's going to get close to 200 points, because he did that 2 seasons ago when he got like 15 goals and something pretty decent with assists. I think he got 175 points in total that season. So I think there's a reason why he's 8.0 and the other ones are 7.5, because he's already shown that he can get a lot of points in FPL. But I think actually Darwin would be my second pick, because I think he is like the most out and out striker out of all of them as well, and would get the most chances. I mean, Gakpo, when he plays as a striker, he can score goals as well, but he's more like a guy who can fill in the gaps, either as like a number 10 or like a second striker type of guy, sort of like Bobby Firmino used to do. While Darwin is more like an out and out striker. So I think I would go Jota 1, Darwin 2, Diaz 3, and then Gakpo number 4 if I knew everyone played 90 minutes. But like you, I think Gakpo is the most likely to get minutes, so that's why I think he's sort of an intriguing pick. But seeing as you picked Jota and Gakpo both number 1 and 2 in terms of playtime, and number 1 and 2 in terms of how many points they would get if they would get 90 minutes, wouldn't it make sense for you to have one of them in your team?
No.
Why?
Mo Salah.
Yeah, so
totally think.
I mean, you mentioned earlier you don't want to double up. You said earlier, so is that the case for Liverpool as well? I guess.
Yes, I don't like doubling up, generally speaking, and also Mo Salah. I mean, you're paying 4 million more for that guarantee, but it's also because he is I would hand on heart say he's 4 times better than all these players as well in that regards, because he is just a crazy anomaly in the regards of just how consistent he's kept it. Even his shit year, down years, better than Marcus Rashford's best year, sort of thing, and all this type of stuff. So, I think that's the biggest issue, and the unknown aspect of, do we really know how many minutes these guys are going to get?
Yeah.
Is Szoboszlai all of a sudden going to be a left winger because he can play everywhere as well? So there's a lot of headaches, and that's why I'm going safe with Mo Salah to begin with. Yeah. But obviously, Jota could easily, like, that to me. If, like, for example, if I know the Salah's not going to, like, Salah gets an Nkunku sort of injury, or Salah whatever, then 100% I'd consider bringing in Jota over him. I say 4 million as well, but I think for me right now, this early on, it's hard to know which one of these guys will start. I have an inkling of it by looking at the preseason stuff and just general vibes and all this type of stuff, but as of right now, I'd say, I have to go with the more premium option of Mo Salah than one of these guys. But I like these guys. I think all of them could do the business for Liverpool and in FPL, which sucks as an Everton supporter to say.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you're actually onto something there as well. I think if one of these guys gets injured, like if Gakpo gets injured, Darwin is probably a huge option. If Diaz gets injured, Jota is probably a huge option, and vice versa. If the other one gets injured, we know, like, it's mostly going to be Jota and Diaz on the left, and then Darwin or Gakpo up front. So if either one of these guys gets injured, then it's probably a good bet to go with the other guy who plays instead of him. So I think that's the best advice you can give for those guys. It seems like none of these guys are really that heavily picked, and it's because, like we are talking about right now, it's so hard to predict, both in terms of who's going to start the most matches and who's going to get the most points if they do. So yeah, it's a tough decision, but I think all these guys are really interesting picks. I think one of these guys is going to be a bandwagon around like game week 4 or 5 after we've seen them play 100%. A couple game weeks. So yeah, something to keep an eye on, at least. Maybe even Szoboszlai as well. I don't think McAllister is going to get that many points, but yeah. That's it for the Liverpool team, and now we're going to move on to the final segment, and that is the table prediction. And you get every single team already. We're not doing any reveals. We're just revealing the whole table. This is Kevin's table prediction. So I just want you to quickly run through using like a sentence for each team, basically. Just go from either from bottom to top or top to bottom, why you think their season is going the way you've predicted, sort of.
We'll start from the bottom all the way up. Sheffield United, I just think, are terrible. I think their transfer policies have been absolutely stupid. Sunderberg being sold to Burnley, which is like such a backwards move. Their star player going to Marseille, just real stupid moves left and right. I don't see anything about them that makes me exciting. I really don't like Sheffield United in the sense of, I like Sheffield United before they sold all those players. I don't like Sheffield United after selling those players. So I have to say, the teams between 16 to 20, everyone's interchangeable in my eyes. I just threw something together because obviously Luton, everything considered, now that they bought in the curse that is Ross Barkley as well, they're definitely going to get relegated now. No, I'm just kidding. But I think they were going to get relegated way before, because their wage bill thing is just so much less compared to everyone else. And I mean, I think Coventry would have gone down as well, but I think Luton are even more likely than Coventry, even though Coventry were the team that lost, if you get what I mean. Like, I just don't think Luton have what it takes to stay. I mean, they could very much surprise all of us, like everyone who predicted Bournemouth going down last year. So sure, they can definitely show some character and all this type of stuff, but everything Premier League is sort of at that point where you can't do that. So that's why I think Luton will be going down. Wolverhampton, they sacked Lopetegui. They have no money. They're going down. As simple as that. Nottingham Forest, I think they were pretty lucky with some of their matches last year. They showed stability and all this type of stuff for sure. But when you sign 400 players, that tends to happen. I think they're going to have a down year. I think they might lose a player here or there during the transfer window, potentially in January as well, when there's some emergency signings that needs to be done by the other clubs who want to stay up. So that's why I think, yeah, I just don't see them having the best year. Fulham, again, they could easily be where Brentford is. Like, Fulham have a competent manager in Marco Silva, but Mitroglou might be on his way to Saudi Arabia or leaving the club. It seems like he's clearly made it in classic Mitrovic fashion. He's like, yep, fuck the club I'm at. He always seems to do this. Even with Newcastle, he does the same thing. So, yeah, I think Fulham are in complete disarray. They just signed Willie into a new contract only to sell him to Saudi and all this type of stuff. They missed out on some decent players as well that they wanted to get on the free. So, yeah, I think Fulham are not going to have the best season. Bournemouth, yeah. Well, like Bournemouth, they have decent players and have shown that they have some grit about them. So I don't think they're going to have the worst season. I just don't think they'll have the best one. Burnley, I think Burnley fans will be happy with a easy 14th place finish. I think they could easily finish higher than the clubs I mentioned above. I just don't think they will. I think there's just something missing there. They've got some tasty little players here and there, but I just don't think they have what it takes to beat some of the teams that are above them. Everton at 13th. I mean, we could easily be 17th as well. So, but I think just because of the signings we're making and the sort of, I think the issue last year wasn't the fact that we didn't have a good defense. It's the fact that we had no attack. And we're now finally looking at that. We have Onana. We have James Garner, who's finally getting to get more minutes and all this type of things. We have a squad that's just getting deeper and deeper thanks to some of the signings we're trying to make. And I'm excited. Finally, Danjuma picked the right club. He's going to get to play and he's going to absolutely destroy things. People forget that Danjuma was amazing for Villarreal every time he played for them. So I think that's going to be a difference maker and why we're going to have a better season this year. Crystal Palace 12th, they could easily be above both Brentford and West Ham. It's just that if Michael Luis leaves and Zaha, who has already left, that's going to be a huge problem for them. But it does mean that Eze is going to have more prominence, and I think that's going to be good for them. West Ham 11th could be way lower if it weren't for the fact that there were just about, here we go, James Ward-Prowse and potentially Maguire, and I feel like they're going to get another random signing in there.
Alvarez
but if
also is training.
Yeah, Edson Alvarez, but also I feel like they're going to sign a striker as well because they've just lost Scamacca. They might potentially lose Antonio as well because he seems to be both in and out of the club like every time I read anything about him. Danny Ings is Danny Ings. He's always injured. That's his issue. So you need to have a out-and-out striker. Yes, you have Darwin, but how much do we really know about him enough to say, is he enough to take you guys past Brentford? I don't personally think so. Brentford 10th place. I don't think they're going to be unhappy with that. I think they're just a solid team. They have a solid foundation. Then it just becomes a question of, is just being there in the Prem enough? Do they have aspirations of doing more? That's what the question becomes.
It's going to be tough to do it without Tony this season.
Exactly. So I think a 10th place would be, they'd be more than happy if that's where they end up being. Personally, I don't know. Brentford Bees, you can tell me otherwise. Brighton ninth.
It's
Again,
pretty low compared to a lot of other people.
it's pretty low, but I think it's because they're gonna be in Europe. They have so many players in so many different positions and all this type of stuff. I think there's gonna be some distractions here and there, and therefore they get a lower spot than they normally do. I also just seem to like what Aston Villa and Newcastle are doing more, and I think Aston Villa are gonna have a. I mean, eighth is very close to what they were last year, right? Did they come seventh or eighth last year?
Yeah, they finished seventh, I think, because they are in they are in the Conference League. So
I think because the teams above them are so much better, that's the only reason why I think Aston Villa will be at eighth. But I think Aston Villa will edge Brighton. I think that's going to be my tasty differential pick in that regards, because I think most people would say Brighton are better than Aston Villa, but I think there's something a little special being built over there at Brighton, especially with Moussa Diaby and Pau Torres. People can't understate how one club got both of those players. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, and another guy who just under the radar, I keep forgetting, actually went to Aston Villa. Yeah, those are huge signings. And they, unlike some of these other clubs, they are targeting actually where they needed players.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, that being said, I am willing to bump Brighton up if these Douglas Luiz rumors are to be believed. That is going to be a huge miss for them if he leaves. But considering their track record of signings, I have a feeling they're going to bring out another CD, like a decent CDM that we're like, oh yeah, he's really good. Why the hell did he go to Aston Villa? So yeah, I think they're cooking something special over there. Newcastle, I think Champions League is just going to be a little bit too much for them, and I think they're going to have a drop in sort of that. Like, yes, they have a good squad. Harvey Barnes is amazing. Tonali's amazing. They've done some really nice signings. It's just that they're a bit too young, if that makes sense. They don't have the natural experience, but they have experienced players. They just don't have European experienced players.
Yeah.
So for me, I think Newcastle will sadly have a little bit of a drop. I hope not, because I love Alexander Isak more than most players in the league. But I still think Isak's going to have a great season. I mean, so did Harry Kane, but it didn't mean that his team finished higher than whatever. But I think Spurs, because they don't have that many distractions this year, except for the whole Harry Kane saga, I think Postecoglou is one of those underrated managers where everyone's like, oh, because he's only done Celtic, what else has he done? Blah 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 blah. But I think that's exactly what they need, a kind of no nonsense manager who can definitely take them up a peg. Yes, sadly it's not Champions League peg, but you're building something nice there with James Maddison and the rest. Yeah. Chelsea.
Go on.
Chelsea, before the Nkunku injury, I would have said that they'd finish in the top 4. Wow. After Nkunku, nah. However,
fifth might be, like
coefficient-wise, that might still be enough for a Champions League, and I still think that Chelsea might finish 5th, and I think that's just because Nkunku's there. That's how highly I rate Nkunku. I think Nkunku, and people can get me, quote me, feel free to throw this video at me, but I think his importance is going to be as Harry Kane's importance to Spurs. Wow. Like, I think that is how good Nkunku can be, and that's how good I know he is. But these injuries are starting to get really alarming. Yeah. But obviously, it's just super unlucky that Mats Hummels is a fucking idiot and throws himself into a challenge like that. So
he's got a nasty injury again, but he had that last season and came back and became the top scorer in Bundesliga. So when he's back in December, he's probably going to go straight ahead and score straight away as well and be that player, because he showed that last season that even if he returns from a major injury, he can still be that guy and score a lot of goals. So I'm right there with you with Nkunku. Not quite as like Harry Kane Spurs levels, but he is going to be fantastic. He's one of the best players in the league already, I think. He's definitely in the top 10 players in the Premier League for me. But yeah, continue.
Manchester United and Liverpool are obviously very interchangeable. I think I might even be too high on Liverpool, to be honest. But I think, just generally speaking, I feel like Man United still have a lot of things to address. I mean, they don't really have the holding midfielder that they really wanted to get. Mason Mount has proven to look terrible in preseason. Again, that can always change. Rasmus Højlund's injured for a little bit. Again, I am super hyped on Højlund, but at the same time, I am fully aware that he's a talent. You did not pay 70 million for someone who's going to, bang straight away. You paid for someone who is going to be a world beater eventually. I think Manchester United being in the Champions League might struggle a little bit. And I think Liverpool have a good enough squad where Darwin Nunez could be their starting striker in the Europa League. I think it will benefit Liverpool to not have to take the Europa League as seriously compared to Man United, who will do their best to have a good showing in the Champions League and stuff like that. So I think with fixture congestion and all this type of stuff, that's the only reason why I've kept Liverpool ahead of Man United. Yeah. But again, those two are so interchangeable. Arsenal, I feel, are cut above the others, especially with signing Declan Rice, who has been a naughty player. Jurriën Timber was the one who impressed me the most in that game, and he played out of position at left back as well. So, well, was he doing step overs and turned into Ronaldinho? I don't know, but I love the confidence, and that to me is sign enough that you know what, I kind of ragged on him when he first signed, saying that they signed too many players in the same positions, but hell, he's shown that even out of position that he's better than some of the people who are in their strongest positions. So yeah, Arsenal are the second best, but Man City are just going to run ragged, aren't they? They're going to win it again. It's so boring. However, Riyad Mahrez not being there is a huge.
Just joined Barcelona.
Yeah. I think both signings, you've taken away two players who often are the reasons you score when the others don't. Because it's always Gundogan or Riyad Mahrez who show up with the creativity or the goals when they're needed the most. So
not Haaland.
Haaland's always scoring. That's the thing, right? But
just not in the finals.
It's not in the finals or he scores in the big games in the Premier in the league though.
He scores every game.
Hat trick against United and all this type of stuff. But that being said, it's the fact that they haven't replaced them properly. Yes, Kovacic is amazing. I was very impressed by Kovacic in the game against Arsenal. He seamlessly was in that midfield as if, he's been there for 8 years, but that says a lot about his maturity and his style of play. Yeah. However, they haven't replaced Riyad Mahrez. They haven't replaced Gundogan in terms of the goals and the creativity and that aspect, which could hurt them. However, if Michael Olise goes to City, then that's wraps. That's even more wraps. And this is a Leicester City side, and still I think they're going to win the Premier League, no problem.
Fair enough. That is your table. I'm going to have my table prediction tomorrow. It's a little bit different, but it's kind of the same as well, because I feel like there's like different tiers of the table. Like you have like obviously probably like a top 2, maybe top 1. Some people say City are going to win easily. Some people say that Arsenal could challenge them. But it's mostly like City, probably number 1, number 2 at the very least. And then you have like a top 4, Liverpool, Man United. Then you have like the next 5, Chelsea, Spurs, Newcastle, Villa, Brighton. They seem to be in sort of like the same group as well. Brentford, kind of just outside that group, kind of in their own space. Like I feel like they are sort of just like nailed on for that 10th place just because like they're better than West Ham and they're worse than Brighton, pretty much. Yeah. Then you have like West Ham, Palace, Everton, Burnley, Bournemouth-ish sort of section. And then the bottom tier with Fulham, Forest, Wolverhampton, Luton, and Sheffield United. So I think we have pretty much the same tiers. It's just a bit jumbled up where we have them in those tiers. But that's something you're going to see tomorrow or later today, I guess, in terms of when the video is posted, because it's going to be posted. This is posted on the Thursday morning, while my table prediction is going to come out on Thursday night. So yeah, you'll get to see. But before we end it, I'm just going to ask you one question. That is, if you have one realistic hope for this season, what would it be? But before you answer, because I want to leave you with the last word, like I usually do on these podcasts, I'm going to say my one big wish. And before I actually say it, can you guess what it is? It's sort of West Ham related, but it's not related to West Ham. Like, it's not about West Ham, but it's West Ham related. Can you guess?
You want Declan Rice to win the Premier League?
True, but that's not my top priority. Still.
Okay. West Ham related, but one wish. Okay, I guess to sign. Wait, with the league or with transfers? What's
one of these teams.
Wait, what?
One of these teams is involved. I'll just say it. My one big wish is for Aston Villa not to win the Conference League. Because if they win the Conference League, if the English teams keep winning the Conference League, it's not going to be that special that West Ham won it. So I want every single English team that are in the Conference League to lose every single year, especially now with Emery. Like, everyone expects Emery to just pick out that trophy. I like Aston Villa. I like what they're building. You don't like Aston Villa, but I quite like Aston Villa, what they're building. But Conference League, nah. I want West Ham to be the only winners of the Conference League. Spurs went out in the group stages. Perfect. West Ham won it. Perfect. Let's keep that as it is. West Ham will win it. Maybe West Ham will come down in the Conference League, actually, if they go third in the group in the Europa League. So maybe we'll win it ourselves. But yeah, that's my one big wish. Aston Villa not to win the Conference League. But with that said, what is your one big wish? And also, you can't make it Everton related because that's too obvious. But like, what's your one big wish for this season in the Premier League? Everton notwithstanding. That's what we're going
to okay, yeah, sure. And I think a lot of Chelsea fans will be happy to hear this. I hope Nkunku comes back bigger and better. Genuinely. I think he's that good of a player. That's such a stupid fucking shame that he got injured in a fucking I'm cursing a lot, but I'm that annoyed that a player of his caliber, who I was very excited to have at 7.5 in my FPL team, got injured the way he did. So speedy recovery, and hope you come back smashing it as always.
Fair enough. I can co-sign that. And with that, we're leaving you. Thank you, and goodbye.